Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayesho Bhadresho Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ukam karoti vachalam pangorangaite girimet kripa tamaham vante Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanyameshwaram. Tat Sat. Okay. So here is a situation. So post Mahabharata war. So the greatest war in the history of 5,000 years. That's what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here. Because there were many great other great battles which were interplanetary battles also, which was waged by the great kings who also went and supported the demigods. So here Srila Prabhupada is mentioning about this great war of Kurukshetra between the two rival brothers, so Yudhishthira Maharaj and Duryodhana. So it was not only the war between two rival brothers, actually it was a war between the virtue and the vice. So the whole world was divided between the virtue and the vice. So people who were all evil-minded and who were envious of the Lord, so they all took the side of Duryodhana. So and people who were dharmic, so and who wanted to support King Yudhishthira Maharaj took the side of Yudhishthira Maharaj and Krishna. So and this great battle ensued between on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and Lord Sri Krishna was also a participant in the war. So though he did not raise any weapon, so still he was on the side of the Pandavas as their well-wisher, friend, guide, so and also a chariot driver of Arjuna. So here it was a massacre of 650 million men within 18 days, and it's not something ordinary. So even if 5,000 to 10,000 people die in an earthquake, it becomes a big news. So in the world, so even in the recent earthquakes in Turkey also, so when almost like 5,000 to 10,000 men lost their lives, and there was a huge destruction of property. So there was a huge hue and cry. So in the social media, so we see all this. It's something, it's like this kind of a catastrophe. So it cannot be digested by the human beings at large. So, and what to speak of the massacre of 64 crore men on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and hundreds and thousands of people went missing. So imagine what is the magnitude of this war. And everything was finished. See, war means war does not carry on for years, like today's wars we can see between Russia and Ukraine. It's going on for years, and some wars goes on for years. The war between Vietnam and America, so it's going on for years. So things have to be settled. Life has to go on. You cannot have a war situation all through. The human form of life is valuable. So everything had its place in Vedic system. Everything was perfect. So even if there was difference of opinion, everything had to be settled within a certain time frame, so that the real purpose of life can go on. So this is what we have seen, that 18 days everything was finished. So things had to be settled within 18 days, and Yudhishthira Maharaj had to take over, and he had to start ruling the kingdom also. so things have to go on. So even when Abhimanyu was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, so Arjuna was very much aggrieved. So, but the very next day he had to handle himself, and he had to wage the war. So things had to go on. So that's how people are trained. So in the Vedic system, so that things will go on smoothly. Here, such a huge massacre, and Yudhishthira Maharaj, so he is a pious king, a devotee of the Lord. It's natural for him to be compassionate. So this is the natural quality of a devotee. So though Yudhishthira Maharaj, he did not, he was not very much inclined to wage this war. So, because um, even after the Ajnatavas, so when Yudhishthira Maharaj understood the mood of Duryodhana, he was a very sensitive man. So he understood the mood of Duryodhana, and Lord Shri Krishna was sent as a messenger. So Lord Shri Krishna was sent as a messenger to uh, Duryodhana to work out a compromise. He said, now we have completed the 13 years. If they want to return the kingdom, let them return now. Or so Yudhishthira Maharaj was willing to compromise. So we are all Kshatriyas. We cannot take up any other profession. So at least we can be an we have to function as administrators, and let us be given 5 villages. These 5 villages are sufficient for us. So so this was a compromise which Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted to work out. So look at his good heart. Anyway, things are going on well. So we are not too inclined, we are not too possessive that we want to become the kings. But we are Kshatriya, so let us rule. So he worked out a compromise. But Duryodhana, so he was so envious. He was so envious, and he was so determined that he wanted to eradicate Pandavas from the surface of the earth. He wanted to finish the devotee, the dearmost devotees of the Lord from the face of the earth, which Lord, with the Supreme Lord, will never tolerate. So such was his determination. So he said that I will not allow even I will not give people so much space that you can drive even a pin. So therefore, when all good reasons fail, when all good attempts to work out a compromise fails, war becomes inevitable. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, being a very reasonable man, he worked out a compromise with the Lord as the messenger, but things did not work out. So war becomes inevitable when all good reasons fail. So this is what happened. And there was this great battle of Kurukshetra. So Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, Samaveta, Yutsava. So all the members of both the Kuru dynasty and the Pandavas, they had assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and this great battle ensued. And as the resultant of the war, post the war, so Yudhishthira Maharaj was completely mortified. So he is taking responsibility, being a very responsible man. He took the responsibilities because of me. It was because of my ambition to become a king. So it was not his ambition. As we see, why I spoke all this about Yudhishthira Maharaj, because there was reasonable attempts made to stop the war. So even Arjuna, so we can see this is on one side Yudhishthira Maharaj, and on the other side Arjuna also before the war. He was not willing to uh, wage war against his own relatives. He did not want to see Bhishma Dev die, Dronacharya die. So, but still, he said, he told the Supreme Lord, my Lord, I'm willing to take up the profession of begging. I don't want to see this war happen. So Prabhupada writes that this is the natural compassion of a devotee. But on the other side, we see Duryodhana. He was hell bent upon working out this war. So he wanted the war at any cost. So, and also Dhritarashtra, in the very first shloka of the Bhagavad Gita itself, we see Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, Samaveta Yutsava, Mamaka Pandava Sheva, Kim Akurvata Sanjay. He is saying that what did they do after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? What did they do? So, such an elderly man, he did not want to see that they work out a compromise. So, and the kingdom of the Pandavas are given to them. So he was also determined that the war should happen, and he was also hopeful that we will win the war because we have 11 Akshonis on our side and 7 on the Pandava side. So he was also just like Duryodhana. So working out a material calculation, we are 11, they are 7, so we are surely going to win the war. So he was very much hopeful of the victory also. So, but on the other side, you see the devotees. So for them, it was a no choice situation except to wage a war. So even after all the compromises were made, nothing worked out, and an inevitable war which they fought, and finally, so Yudhishthira Maharaj is taking up the responsibility. This is how a devotee takes up responsibility for things in life. So this is the greatest lesson, Yudhishthira Maharaj is taking, that we have to be responsible. So each and every act of ours becomes responsible. So therefore, so the devotee has a great responsibility, one on the personal side, and one on the collective side. So especially for the leaders, so they have a great responsibility. So every act matters, every move matters. So therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj here is taking full responsibility as a king. It is because of my ambition that so many animals, so many soldiers, so they all lost their lives. So many animals were killed on the battlefield. So he was completely mortified, and he was not convinced. So Lord Krishna, who could convince Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, so after reciting Bhagavad Gita, so Arjuna was convinced and he waged the war. But here, Yudhishthira Maharaj is not convinced. It is not. He is not convinced by Lord Krishna. He is not convinced by Vyasadeva. So they are all trying to give him good counsel, good advice. They are all giving references from the history. So they are giving reference from the Dharma Shastras. You are not at fault. So this war was inevitable. So you are not responsible for the war. You have done your duty as a Kshatriya. So, but still, Yudhishthira Maharaj is not getting convinced. So why? What is the reason? So Krishna, who is the Krishna Adbhuta Karmanaha, it is mentioned here. So a performer of great superhuman acts. So, and Bhagavad Gita, the great historical narration, so which is unparalleled in the history. So, and even to this day, we refer to Bhagavad Gita for everything. So, Krishna is not able to convince him. Is Krishna really not able to convince him? Is the question. That is not the case. It is also again the will of the Lord that Yudhishthira Maharaj should not be convinced. He is sitting as a super soul in the heart of Yudhishthira Maharaj and also Vyasadeva. And he is not allowing Yudhishthira Maharaj to be convinced because he had another great purpose. So this is also Krishna Adbhuta Karma. There is a much more greater activity. So the Lord is not allowing Yudhishthira Maharaj to be convinced. So because he wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj to be heard by Bhishma Dev. So he wanted to bring out the glories of Bhishma Dev. So such a great devotee of the Lord. So his life, his activities, his experiences, so his knowledge of the scriptures, so that had to be brought to the world. So we see when in Mahabharata, more than 2/3 of the Mahabharata is the Bhishma Parva. So where Bhishma Dev is giving instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj on various aspects of life. So from the point of Dharma. So he is talking about so Yudhishthira Maharaj, see, Yudhishthira Bhishma Dev is not in a very normal condition. He is lying on the bed of arrows, and all the Pandavas, so they all decorated themselves very nicely. So, and it was the instruction of the Lord that they should all decorate themselves very nicely as kings. So, and they should all be present before Bhishma Dev. And it was also the desire of Bhishma Dev to see Lord Krishna at the end of his life. So, Lord Krishna, along with Bhishma Dev, along with Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, who are all well decorated. So they all go to meet Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev is giving this great narration, this Bhishma Parva, where you can see, so the Lord is giving, where Bhishma Dev is giving this important instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj, so from Dharma Shastras, so as to how a king should rule, what are the duties of a king, so, and various other philosophical points, and looking things from different philosophical perspectives. So, and great historical narration which we can see when we read Mahabharata. Various philosophical aspects are covered. we can know the in-depth knowledge of how deep a devotee Bhishmadev was. So, and what a great soul Bhishmadev was. So all these glories had to be brought out to the whole world for the benefit of the world. So this was the plan of the Lord, that this great narration should take place between Yudhishthira Maharaj and Bhishmadev. So they were all not ordinary personalities. So this great historical narration, Mahabharata, is not an ordinary narration. You can see, so such a great historical epic, the history, so for the welfare of the mankind. So this was the plan of the Lord, that all these things should happen. So we can see the Lord can convince somebody, and the Lord can also not convince somebody by his superhuman feats. This is also one of the another great feature of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is achintya, is inconceivable. So when whatever acts he does is for the welfare of everybody. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.